He is risen. Yeah. You may have noticed the mess when you came in. It's not normally like this, but we do celebrate pretty big on Easter around here. I just think like, if I'm gonna pop confetti when the Tar Heels win a national championship, which is not this year, but it's been done many times, or the Braves win the World Series, like, why would I not celebrate the resurrection of Jesus from the dead? Like, why would I not go big for that? And so that's what we do here. We believe that it was a world-changing event. And not just world-changing, but it was a me-changing event, right? It changed me. So we're going to continue to follow this way of love. Jesus walked this path to Jerusalem knowing that death lay ahead of him, and he endured rejection, betrayal from his friends, persecution, mocking, pain, suffering, and death because of love for us. And so as we get to this day, when we get to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus from the dead, love is still the theme. It's still the main thing that's at the center of this story. And so we're going to take a look at what that looks like today. I think someone has decorated my Bible. That's awesome. No? Jeez, gosh. You just never know. Like, I'm sure this is my fault somehow. So I think when you get to this point in the story of redemption, you have to ask, like, okay, what's next, right? The resurrection happened. We're so excited. What's next? Is this like the end of something or the beginning of something? Or you remember the little exercises you would do in elementary school? The teacher would give you this paper and it had like these shapes on it: circle, square, square, circle, triangle, and you have to predict which shape comes next, right? I was terrible at that. I'm better with words than shapes and numbers and lots of other things. But that's kind of like what we're doing. We're looking at the gospel story from creation all the way through the Old Testament to Jesus showing up on the scene, bringing new life to people, and then he rises from the dead, and we're kind of supposed to go, what's next? Okay, what have we learned through the pattern of this story, and what's supposed to happen next? And I think we can get the idea, especially as Christians in sort of the culture that we live in, that there's really nothing next. I mean, well, the next thing is really I go to heaven, right? So Jesus died for my sins, rose from the dead, so I can be forgiven and go to heaven when I die, right? And so the next thing is I die and go to heaven. Does that sound exciting? I mean, are you pumped about that? Are you like, well, I guess I'll stick around for a few years and see what happens? Like, I don't think that that's how we're supposed to think about the rest of our years, is just waiting to die so we can go to heaven. I think there's more to it. I think there's something next for us. And I think that because this is what we read in Scripture. If the resurrection were kind of just the end, then the Bible would skip from the end of the Gospel of John straight to Revelation, and we wouldn't have all this other stuff in the middle, right? But it's all there. So why is it there? What is it there for? That's what we're going to kind of look at today. I mean, even in the Gospel of John, John was a disciple of Jesus. He wrote this biography of Jesus, and he gets to chapter 20. The resurrection happens. Everyone's excited. Jesus shows up to some people, and at the end of that chapter, John says, hey, there's so many more things I could have told you about. Jesus just did a lot of stuff, but I chose to tell these stories so that you would believe that he is the Son of God, period. And you're like, oh, book over. Nice ending, John. Way to wrap it all up. But it's not the end of the book. There's another chapter. And you kind of got to go, John, why did you add another chapter after your conclusion? That's just weird, right? That's not how books work. But John does. And so it's important for us to understand why John added chapter 21 to his gospel and what is in this story for us. Because this is an after the resurrection event that I think is very meaningful and help us answer this question, what next? What comes next? And the question I would like to ask you to allow to roll around in your brain this morning is, am I good where I am? Like, am I happy with where I am? Not just physically. I mean, obviously, you're worshiping with people on Sunday morning, Easter Sunday. I hope you're happy, and you're going to be either happy or startled or something later when we celebrate. But what about physically? What about emotionally? What about spiritually? What about mentally? Are you happy with where you are? Can you wake up in the morning and say, I'm at peace with God. I'm right with God. I'm at peace with people. I have good kingdom work to do. Or is there more for you? Is there something next for you? So let's just let that question roll around as we jump into John 21. So I'm going to just tell you the first part of the story, and then we'll read the second part. So in the beginning of chapter 21, Peter, who is one of the most famous disciples, right? He's kind of a bold, brash guy. He does a lot of things without thinking about it. Reminds me of some teenagers I know. None of you. I mean, you guys are awesome. But he might have been a teenager. So Peter is with six of his friends, the six other disciples, and they're kind of sitting around. I mean, Jesus rose from the dead, and he shows up every now and then. I mean, he showed up twice already, and they got to see him and touch him and eat with him, and so they know he's alive, but he doesn't like hang out. He just like comes in and out, and it's unpredictable, and it's rare for him to show up, and so their life goes from every moment of every day with Jesus to like just waiting for the next time he's going to appear. And while they're waiting, Peter says, I'm going fishing. Now, Peter was a fisherman when Jesus first called him, and so it's a natural thing for Peter to do. We don't know exactly why he did it, if it was because they needed food to eat or some money, and so they could sell some fish, or if Peter is sort of like drifting back to where he was before Jesus called him because he doesn't have anyone to follow right now, it feels like. So he's kind of going backwards in his faith and in his life. We don't really know. But for whatever reason, Peter goes fishing. 6 guys go with him, and they fish all night, and they catch 0 fish. No fish are caught all night long. Some of you fish, and you kind of know what that's like. And what do you want to hear from people after a night like that? The sun comes up, they see a guy standing on the shore, he calls out to them, hey, did you catch anything? Is that what you want to hear? No. So they just say, nope, caught no fish. And so he says, why don't you throw your nets on the other side of the boat and just see what happens? And so they do it. And as soon as they do, fish are jumping into that net like it's the last train to Disney World. I mean, they're trying to get eaten, right? And so all these fish jump in, and something clicks with John, and he goes, Peter, I think that's Jesus on the shore. And the reason why this is coming to mind is because Peter and John had a similar experience to this previously. They were fishing all night. We'll get to that in a moment. But Peter says, oh, if that's Jesus, I want to be where he is. This is the same guy that when Jesus was walking on the water in the lake in the middle of a storm and he sees Jesus, he just jumps out of the boat and tries to walk on water too, because wherever Jesus is, he wants to be there. So he jumps out of the boat, swims to shore. Jesus is there with him. He's got a fire and he's got bread and fish. And you're kind of like, they fished all night, professional fishermen, right? Fished all night, nothing. Jesus is on the shore with some fresh fish. You're kind of going, I see who's the better, fisherman. He probably just went and whistled and they just jumped into his fire. I don't know. So just a little stab at him maybe. And so Peter gets to shore. Jesus says, why don't you bring some of your fish, add to mine, and we'll have a meal together. And Peter's like, oh yeah, fish. So he jumps back in, gets in the boat, and according to John's story, Peter drags that net up to shore by himself. Like he's got this kind of giddy energy going with this adrenaline that is the same thing that lets moms pick cars up off of their kids and stuff. That's what Peter's got going. He's just going, right? And so he drags the fish up, and they count the fish, which is fun and strange, and 153 fish. Don't know what that means, but it was a lot. So they sit down and they share this meal together on the shore. And I think we're supposed to be thinking, John added this chapter for a reason, right? So we're supposed to be thinking, what's going on with Peter? Peter's obviously the main character of this story. What is going on with Peter? I mean, if you remember, the last thing that Peter said about Jesus before Jesus died is, I don't know that guy. I have nothing to do with him. I don't want to be associated with him. Last thing he said before Jesus died. And so, can you picture some of the conflicting emotions going on in this guy right now? Like, he's so excited that Jesus is alive and also a little terrified because he's not really sure where he stands. So Jesus is going to have a conversation with him that's going to help him know where he stands. So that's where we're going to pick up in chapter 21, verse 15. So if you see something on the screen that's underlined, that's your part. Please read that aloud. When they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" "Yes, Lord," he said. You know that I love you." Jesus said. Again, Jesus said, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He answered, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said. The third time he said to him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him the third time, "Do you love me?" He said, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." Jesus said. Then he said to him, "Follow me. Follow me." I think Jesus is doing something here that's going to ring a lot of bells in Peter's memory. Some things are happening that he's going to make some connections with. First, Jesus asks him 3 times, "Do you love me?" And you have to be thinking about the 3 times that Peter denied knowing Jesus and kind of go, maybe this is an opportunity for Peter to deal with what happened. And then Jesus says, "Follow me. Follow me." And again, this three years ago, Jesus said this to Peter after this miraculous. Let's just read this from Matthew 4. As Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, they were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. At once they left their nets and followed him. So the last time Peter heard these words from Jesus directed to him, he left everything behind, changed his entire life, centered his life around Jesus. His life was never the same. And I wonder if Jesus is kind of calling him back to that moment, reminding him of some things, asking this question 3 times, the same number of times that Peter denied him, standing next to this fire, which is what Peter was doing when he denied Jesus. He was standing by a fire, and all of these things are working together. I mean, the smell of the smoke and the 3 repeated question, and all of this is coming back to Peter. He's going back to this moment. A moment that, honestly, he probably doesn't want to think about anymore. Remember, this is the last thing he said before Jesus died, and now he's standing in front of him, and he's got to wonder. You've probably had similar experiences. I have a friend in Connecticut named Roman, and I'm glad I can still call Roman friend because I tried to ruin it. He and I would hang out together. I mean, he taught me a lot of things. He taught me how to take a chicken from being alive and well to the dinner table, and never forget that experience. But I borrowed Roman's truck one time, and I damaged it somewhat badly. And I felt terrible. Obviously, I called him. He didn't answer. I left a message saying, "Roman, I broke your truck. I want to pay to get it fixed. Let's get together and figure this out." Well, he never called me back. I called him multiple times, texted him, and he just ghosted me. It was like he didn't want to talk to me. And so we live in this small town, and his son and my son are friends, and I'm going to run into him, and I have this like anxiety over running into him out in public. Like, I want to see him because he's my friend, and I also don't want to see him because he has a good reason to be really mad at me right now. And I wonder if Peter's kind of going through some of these same things. Like, I'm excited to see Jesus, but Jesus is probably really mad at me. I mean, I let him down huge. I can't think of a way to let Jesus down more than I let Jesus down. Surely there's going to be some punishment involved. Surely, like, he might kick me out of the disciples. He might be like, I can get by with 10. I don't need you. Peter's got all this going on in his head. Like, what is he going to do? And so what does Jesus do? He says, "Do you love me?" I want you to reinforce what you believe about me, your connection with me. Is Jesus asking Peter because Jesus doesn't know if Peter loves him or not? Of course. He knows. I think he's asking because he wants Peter to answer, Peter, you got to think about this. Do you really love me? I wonder if Peter's doubting his own love for Jesus. If he's in this crisis of faith moment where he's like, I don't even know if I'm good enough to answer that question. I don't even know if it's true when it comes out. Like, he's struggling with this. And so each time he answers, Jesus responds with, feed my sheep. So Jesus is saying, not only do I recognize what you did, we all know what you did, but what matters is, do you love me? And will you work with me? If you love me and you will work with me, we're going to be fine. This feed my sheep is an invitation to partner with Jesus in the work of the kingdom. And Peter's going to have a key role in the early church. He's going to be the leader of the church in Jerusalem. It's a big job, thousands of people, first mega church ever. Peter's the guy. And Jesus says, there are things in front of you that you cannot even imagine. You're going to do things you won't even believe. There's a moment when Peter is so full of the Spirit and led by God that when he walks past sick people, if his shadow falls on them, they are healed. You think fisherman Peter from 3 years ago ever thought that was going to happen? No way. But Jesus is saying that I have so much more for you than where you are right now. And all I need to know is that you love me and you're going to work with me. This is what's next for Peter after the resurrection. Jesus gets new life, and now Peter gets new life, a fresh start. That's what follow me is from Jesus. When he calls out follow me, it's an invitation to a fresh start, a new beginning. Some of you have experienced that. You've heard Jesus call to you, follow me. Maybe not in an audible voice, but through your confidence that God is good and Jesus is inviting you. You've heard that call and you've said yes, and you centered your life around Jesus. For some of you, that's pretty far back in your memory, and you're not really even sure you can recall what that felt like or what you were thinking in that moment when you responded to that call. So maybe you need to hear it again. Maybe you need to hear Jesus calling out your name, saying, follow me. Follow me. There's nothing better you can do with your life. And if you follow me, there are things ahead of you you're going to get to be a part of that you could never do on your own. You could never accomplish on your own. But with me, oh man, there's some good work to do. Good work to do. That's what Jesus is doing for Peter. It's this resurrection, it's this new life for Peter. It's this restoration, this reconnecting with Jesus. And also I think it's a restoration of his place among the disciples. If you think about it, I mean, the night that Jesus was betrayed, he washes their feet and he tells them that you guys are all gonna bail on me. Something bad's gonna happen, you're all gonna bail on me. And Peter's like, no way. He's like, maybe these losers will run away. I will never, Jesus, I will never betray you. And then a few hours later, he's standing by that fire saying, I don't even know that guy. And the other disciples are aware of all of this. They're aware that Peter thought he was better than them and proved that he wasn't. And you wonder if he lost some of his influence among the disciples because of that failure. And Jesus is restoring that. These other guys are listening to this conversation going, Jesus is okay with Peter. Jesus has forgiven Peter. He still wants Peter to be a part of this. And so I guess we have to do that too. So he's got this new life. He's restored in his relationship with God and with others. And he has this invitation to partner with Jesus in the work of the kingdom. Feed my sheep. Take care. You're gonna be the first mega church pastor. And listen, that's a hard job. I want to make sure that you know I'm with you and we're going to do this together. So I think that we have moments where we need this for us. Our salvation is the work of Jesus on the cross. Our response to that salvation is not a one-time event. It's not hey, I got baptized once, or I said this prayer once, or It happens over and over again. There are moments in your life when you need to be resurrected. You need new life. You need a fresh start. Maybe today is one of those moments. There are moments when you need restoration with God, when you wake up and you go, I don't think I'm at peace with God. I don't think I'm in a right relationship with him. I don't feel like I'm doing kingdom work, anything that matters for eternity. And you need this restoration and invitation. Maybe today is that day. Maybe you hear that call from the Holy Spirit today for new life, restoration, invitation. And then you get to live this resurrection life. And it's pretty exciting. It's difficult. I mean, we know it's difficult. We've been through, in our church family, we've been through the last 6 weeks of this study called The Way of Love, and it has just walked us down a very difficult and dark road. That following Jesus is going to take us through some times where we feel alone, where we are wondering if something good is going to come out of this. But then we always get to this Easter Sunday, to this resurrection day, when we celebrate new life. And so we get to live this resurrection life. What does that look like for you? It probably looks like confetti sometimes. There's still stuff falling out of my Bible. Yep. So here's what I want to ask you. Is there some part of your faith that you have drifted from that you want to see restored? Maybe you quit going to church. Maybe you just haven't been to church in a while. And you quit because everybody there acts like they've kind of got it all together and you don't. And you're like, either these people aren't real or I'm not good enough to be a part of them. Well, welcome to Cicero Christian Church, where we are an absolute mess, right? We blow it all the time, and we don't have it all together. We smile when we're here because we get to be around other people who also don't have it all together. Maybe you bailed out on church because the church hurt you or someone that you love in a painful way. And you just lost confidence that this can be a good thing. Well, if that's happened to you, first of all, I apologize. Please forgive me, forgive the church, whether it was this church or another one. But maybe your faith in this church as something that God created can be resurrected today, and your connection can be restored, and you can know that you're invited to participate and join in the work. Maybe you drifted from Bible reading and prayer. You just don't pick up the Bible. You don't really pray, family occasions or whatever. That's about it, or something's going really bad. You need help. Maybe you quit reading the Bible because you read some things and it just didn't click. It felt outdated. It felt unscientific. It felt, like it just didn't connect with real life. And you thought, that's not doing anything for me. Maybe you quit praying because you prayed some prayers and they just bounced off the ceiling. They didn't go anywhere. You feel like no one's answering. Or you don't know how to pray. You feel like, well, when I go to church, people act like they know how to pray, like they took a college class on it. And I didn't take that class, so I don't know how to pray. And maybe today your approach to Scripture and prayer can be resurrected. You can have new life there and confidence that God can speak to you through His Word and that you can speak to Him through prayer, that He does listen. And He does have revelation for you in His Word. Maybe that can all be restored today. Whatever the step is that you need to take when it comes to new life, restoration, and invitation, we just want to challenge you to think about that. Because tomorrow's coming. Today's great. Today's awesome. I love it. Today, I would live Easter Sunday every day. It would just be my dream, right? But Monday is coming, right? So what about today will show up in your life tomorrow? Because if the answer is nothing, then what are we doing here? I mean, we just got to be honest and ask that question. But if it's going to show up tomorrow, we got to make some decisions. We got to take a look and ask ourselves, am I good where I am? Am I in the right place? Am I right with God? Am I right with people? Am I participating in the work of the kingdom? And if not, I got to take a step. I got to take a step of faith. Maybe that step is baptism. Maybe you've never been baptized into Christ, and that's just a step that you need to take to align yourself with Jesus. Whatever that is, if you would like some help with that, we've got a lot of people here who would love to talk with you, pray with you, and help you figure out what that step is. We're not able to see the future or read your mind, so I can't just tell you exactly what it is you need to do. But together we can figure it out, and we'd love to invite you to reach out. I want resurrection life for you. I want it to mean something Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 2025, 2031, however long you get to live. I want this to mean something for you every day. So I just invite you to think about that question as we get ready to sing and celebrate. This is going to be fun. Or else, no, it's going to be fun. So would you stand? We are going to sing this awesome praise song to God. And at a critical moment, when it's just kind of building to a big moment after the bridge, Matthew will give you a countdown. And then if you are blessed to have a confetti popper, that's your cue. And if not, just dance in it. It'll be great. All right? We'll celebrate the resurrection of Jesus today. He is risen.